Well, it was Ari Shaffir made such a good point when I don't know if you remember, he released 2 specials, and one of them he mentioned another comic by name who he didn't like, and people were calling for his head. And I talked to him, and I'm like, how did you handle that? Because we all see people who end up in the barrel on, kind of the end of a social media mob. And he's like, you know what I did? I took my phone and I went like this, and I walked away from it for a week. And by the time I came back, someone else was in the crosshairs, and I just moved on. And I thought it's such a good lesson how we feel, how you feel, oh my God, someone's yelling at me, and you're like, well, now they're not. Now they're not. I'm only if I'm giving them that opportunity. And it's funny how you see people get drawn into it, to trolls, and so many trolls I think are just looking for attention or whatever, or and they see a response, and you see it, like you see these people like Artie Lang or Anthony Cumia, who often will, some of them love to engage trolls, and you're like, you're only inviting this bad behavior when you do that.
Like you're just making it harder on yourself. Like,
did he call out the girl who had one arm?
Damien, yeah, he did. But he said
brutally funny.
Brutal.
He's like, I met this chick in L.A. She's got one arm. I knew her when she had 2 arms. She was just as annoying them. So her annoyance to arm ratio has skyrocketed. Also, she smells. You know that fat people smell? Not all of them have it, but some do, and she has it. It was brutal.
Now her left side folds are even worse.
And I love Ari. I think he's such a funny and fearless comic, and he's great, and he's willing to risk consequences.
To make fun of a one-armed lady.
It's great that he's finally sober.
Yeah. Is he sober now?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's a drug addict.
I'm like, all those guys. Well, did you see, like, he hijacked the Skank Fest, the announcement of it. Like, Louis J. Gomez had worked and was like, Sunday night at midnight, we'll announce it. And Ari was part of it. So Sunday at like 6 p.m., he goes, hey, Skank Fest is coming on these dates, and stole the thunder out of it. And, it's probably one of those things where it ended up getting more publicity because people were like, oh, I can't believe Ari did that. Louis, are you mad? And it ended up drumming up more publicity. But I thought it was just like such a perfect Ari move. Like, of course, Louis J. What did you expect?
He is hilarious.
But all those guys are. I like it. It's funny. My comedy is very clean and innocuous, and that's kind of who I am and what I'm comfortable being on stage. And I always think it's like, be authentically who you are, who you're comfortable being. But I really enjoy like Shaffir or Doug Stanhope or Jim Norton or and I ferociously fight for comics like that. It's as someone who makes a living with words. Again, as a comic, I think I don't go anywhere near the line. I don't go anywhere close to it. I'm very innocuous, but I see the importance of protecting anyone who makes a living with words, and why I always think when comics turn on comics or say this topic's off, I'm like the South Park. Either everything's fair game or nothing is fair game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that every single person, whether you do a podcast or whether you're an actor, should be defending when comics come under fire for a joke. It's a joke. And whether it's the idea of Jim Norton has said this, that you could portray a rapist in a movie, nobody thinks you're actually a rapist. But if you make a joke that is clearly satirical, you're not advocating rape, you're trying to make a joke, people will take you at your word because you are this, you happen to be a character. They don't take it as art. And I just think it's one of these mistakes that when people don't fight for that freedom of speech, everyone loses. Podcasts, all that expression and the idea of exchange of ideas suffers from it. So it always, I never understand that, why people don't support each other, particularly comedians, to say, hey, we really need to protect this freedom of speech, because if we lose it, it's just going to rapidly dwindle.
Yeah, we're big fans of Jim Norton and Cumia and Artie and all those guys. Jimmy is so quick. Jimmy
Oh.
is so that's the quickest mind I've ever seen on anything. Like when he's on a podcast or a radio show, the way he just he just instantly has the punchline for to interject into a conversation. It's hilarious. It's incredible.
I still listen to old O&A clips on YouTube all the time, especially the Patrice ones.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Even then, you know, Patrice and Jimmy bantering and whatnot with Anthony there.
God.
Like, it was great. It's such a shame that show fell apart because of Twitter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's, you know, now Jimmy and Sam have their show on, I guess Opie now has his podcast, but I will say I never got to go on O&A and see it live, but to sit between Artie and Anthony now, and Artie, who, you know, is sober, I hope, or at least doing well, but is still I feel like Artie and Anthony now have that same rapport that Anthony and Jim had, where Cumia, for someone who's never done comedy, I put Cumia up there with Norton as just a rapid fire mind. And when I sit there between Artie and Anthony firsthand, I think I'm quick. I think I'm funny. And I feel like the slow kid in class, where I'm just, my mind can't keep up with how fast. I say Jim Norton, Cumia, Lang, and Jay Moore's the other one who I've seen, I think, who are just the fastest machine gun minds, where there's nothing you can throw at them where they can't go back and forth. And it worked.
Artie was making Howard funny for years. Artie was over there feeding Howard jokes, you know, they had a system where he could slip them electronically over to Howard. Like he's feeding, and he's so smart, and he knew the system there. He knew what they were doing as a show. Yeah. You would hear him almost start to like be the funniest one in the room, and then stop and let Howard be the funniest one in the room. It was just really smart guy.
Which is a skill too. To be able to not only have a joke, but to have a joke that someone else can tell. And you know, you guys know, like the timing of it, and I love listening to Jimmy and Ant talk about that. Out there is it can be a half second, and if it's too late, the joke falls flat because the audience or whoever, we've caught up. But that's the thing, is when they're always faster than you and you're listening, you know, particularly as you know, you guys get it when you talk about this and you see it, and to see their minds work that fast it's like a beautiful mind. That thing of just the Rolodex, it is, and it's so fun to be around, and it makes you just want to go want to go try to be funnier, and you realize it's one of those that skill that they've honed over decades of just being the funniest person in the room and having that fastest response. And you know, I look at my friends. It's a lot of people who make it, I think, aren't the funniest people. Like my friends go, you know, it's great you're a comedian, Iseman. You're the 17th funniest one of us, and I agree. Mm-hmm. I'm just the one who's done it, who's moved out and done it, and who's stuck with it. And you see these people, you know, who are so gifted, who never stick with it, or who just quit, who just can't put up with the rejection or the shitty lifestyle, or
it's interesting to see him succeed too, though, right? Like sometimes I feel like I know a comedian that's never really, like, he's funny, but he's not getting the attention, and his star is not shining. And then 12 years later, you know, for whatever reason, opportunity
that's
hits.
It. Let me look at Louis C.K. Well, until recently, but the guy who was in it for 20 years, and you know, Pootie Tang and all these things that were close but didn't hit, and now he had Lucky Louie on HBO, and it didn't do well, and then Louis comes out, and it just changes. And I do think there is that thing of, I always tell people that it's the 15-year overnight success, like, and in a way it's better. Because you look at the first season of Last Comic Standing when Dat Fan won, and he'd only been doing stand-up a few years. Yeah. There sometimes is an advantage to being 15 years into your career before you get your moment, so you are ready for it. Because the worst thing I think that can happen is you get your moment, you get the spotlight, and you fumble it. And then people go, okay, that's it. Because you've made your impression now, and it's hard to come back from that. But if you go in there and you're like, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, there's nothing you can throw at me that I can't handle. That's when they then get their chance and blow up. You know, Tiffany Haddish is not new. but she's new to so many people. And you're like, she's ready. She's ready for the big time, and she's knocking it out of the park. And
even someone like Bill Burr, like I've listened to his podcast from now and again, and he was talking about, like, you know, when he was 38 or something like that. I think he's like 50 now. He was like, I was 38. I was sleeping on a futon, like with a roommate, and at so many nights I'd just be laying there like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like I'm no longer that up and comer kid. Like I'm gonna be 40 in a couple of years, and still most people don't know who I am outside of Boston or New York. And it's like, just 12 years later, he's arguably the biggest guy out there.
And two things pop to mind with that. One is the Monday morning podcast, that he does, that I think is phenomenal. And you guys know how hard it is to podcast. And for him to do it on his own for an hour every week, and to be funny and original. And I think to me, that's how he honed his voice. And that's what's made him so good as a stand-up. And one of the few guys, I think, who can churn out a special pretty quickly and still have it be good. Because he's so good, I think, at knowing his take from doing that podcasting. The other thing was, if you remember the Virus tour, when Opie and Anthony took those comics to Philadelphia, and comic after comic, beasts were bombing. And he goes out there and for 15 minutes rips on Philadelphia, and by the end gets a standing O. And that made him a legend in the comedy community.
Yeah, that was great. You know, I really like. I'm a big fan of Norm Macdonald. I've been listening to his show a good bit. I heard that he's one of the writers now on the Roseanne show Revival, and I'm definitely going to check that out. I think I'll wait till it's all out so I can like binge watch it. I really prefer to do that, but I'm really interested in that. I heard Roseanne on the Howard Stern show, and she was talking about the writing process and how it works and everything. She mentioned a few of the writers. And I was like, oh, wow.
Whitney Cummings, I think, is writing on that.
Yes, she is. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really interested in that. One of my favorite Norm Macdonald things, whenever Artie Lang did Beer League, that movie back in the day, kind of at the height of his movie career, such that it was, he got a review from his home newspaper that said Artie Lang has all the charm of a date rapist. Yeah. and he was really bummed out by that, because like it's his home newspaper, like his little hometown. And Norm Macdonald comes to me, he's like, don't be bummed out by that. Date rapists have tons of charm, right? Like,
they do.
They gotta get the girl out on the date. They gotta trick her.
Gotta trick her there. Norm, nobody has that cadence. And it's funny because I love listening to Artie tell stories about Norm. Because when Dirty Work came out, it was the complete converse. The flip. Like, that was Norm's movie, and it had 1 star next to it, and Artie was like, "Think of it. You're a star. You got a star." And he's like, "You think so? Really? You think so?" And I love when you hear, that these the genuine affection. They met on Dirty Work, and Artie was saying they bonded over gambling, just being both degenerate gamblers. And you love that idea of these two brilliant, funny minds kind of coming together, and the stories they tell about each other. I love, like, Norton and Patrice and Burr and Robert Kelly, this crew. And for me, I've got my crew in LA, and you love that idea. Or Sandler, the way that their success, I think, has really helped all of them rise. And I don't know, there is something that comedy camaraderie, while it can be a cutthroat thing, I think by and large there still really is this notion of, you're in it together, and anyone who gets on stage, whether you like their material or not, you have to respect them, and the idea of, I do just love the idea of some of the funniest people that they're friends too, and just imagining, like, to be able to sit in with them, like, for me, to sit with Schwarzenegger, to think of, you're just hanging out with Artie and Norm, at like the table at the Cellar, listening to them bust balls. And that's what the best shows to me are the shows where it feels like it's just friends talking, and you'd be friends with them too if you knew them, and you're just hanging out and they're having a conversation, and you can't talk. But I love shows like that where you feel people are being honest and just riffing on stuff and sharing stories.
It's so great.